Hello, Ian here from Dark Blazer Workshop. Welcome back to another video. This one we're painting a Shoretrooper from Star Wars. Okay, so this is in actual fact a Tropical Trooper by Darkfire Designs. Obviously they can't call it a Shoretrooper. Darkfire Designs, their sculpts are pretty top notch, really good stuff. And what I've done with this one, I've upscaled it on my 3D printer, so it's a bit larger than normal, just for painting purposes. But I really like this scale, so I'm going to be doing some more at this size. Check out Darkfire Designs. They're on Facebook. They've got a couple of pages now. There's just Darkfire Designs, and they've got a guild as well where they share, well, members will share painted versions of their stuff. And the Patreon is really good value at the minute. I've signed up to that, and you get so many files per month, obviously Star Wars related as well. So yeah, check them out. They're on Instagram as well. I'm no way affiliated to Darkfire Designs, but Ty most generously gave us a voucher to download some of his files for free, so much appreciated. And this is one of the files that I got. So let's show you what I did with the painting. Let's get on with it. Okay, here we go. Main colour scheme for the armour is going to be Vallejo's Deck Tan, a little bit of buff in there, and white. Any white will do. I just use this because it's already thin down, and it goes in the airbrush, no problem at all. Some whites seem to clog up on my airbrush, but this one doesn't. So it's a mixture of about 5 drops of that, 1 drop of that, 1 to 2 drops of ink, and we get a mix of something around that colour. So don't worry if you haven't got Deck Tan, just use something like Citadel's Screaming Skull with a little bit of white in it, and you'll be ready to go. So I'm going to do the base coat with an airbrush just to save time, but if you do it with a normal brush, just give it a couple of coats, just give it a nice opaque coverage is what we're after. There's no messing about with the zenithal prime or anything like that. I just use Halford Grey out of a rattle can, and I was ready to go. So let's get the airbrush going. There's nothing much to see here, but let's give you a rough idea of the coverage on the first coat, and you just build it up from there. And get it nice and even all the way around. Obviously a second pass now. Just going to leave that to dry, and we'll come back for another go with that. Meanwhile, we can do the helmet. I'm just going to apply another coat now. We see now that we're getting a nice opaque coverage. Make sure you get all the angles. That's looking good, I think. Okay. So I've still got some of the original base coat in there, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to add some more white to it. So it'll be another, well, most of the mix is gone, so I'll just add 1 drop of white. Go for 2, why not? Feeling adventurous. And I'm doing these thinner these days with Vallejo, sand water. So 2, 3, 4, maybe 5. I want a nice thin coat for this highlight, and I think we can afford to go a little lighter, so I'm going to add another drop of white in there, and of course I'll add some more water. 2 drops of white. Four water there. That's looking nice now. So let's transfer this to the airbrush and we'll go. So I did the same amount of coats on the helmet. So I'm just going to apply the highlight to it now. So obviously I'm going to go from above. Just to highlight that. Might be able to see the difference in contrast there, maybe not. I'm not going to go too mad on the helmet because it's going to be weathered and probably won't end up seeing it anyway because it's going to be really grimy. Okay, on to the main man. So I'm going to concentrate the highlight now across the shoulders and forearms at the top and across the top of the chest plate, maybe a little bit on the thigh plates, hardly any on the lower legs. So I'm going to go from above. Just across the top of the chest plate there. A little bit on the thigh, maybe a little bit down the bottom there, but I know it's going to catch on this calf here. And that'll do for the highlight. You probably won't pick it up on the camera because the lights are so bright, but it does make a subtle difference. So I'll leave that to one side for it to dry. Okay, so that's dried nicely. The next stage is the first lot of weathering. So for this I'm going to be using odorless thinners and streaking grime for ammo by MIG. I just picked this one because of the colour. It's a nice dark brown. It will go well against the armour. So what I do to start with is dip my brush into the thinners get rid of most of it so that I've just got a moist brush rather than a wet brush, and I'll just apply it to the armour plates. I don't want any pooling of any sort, I just want basically like a misting, as if you were using an airbrush. I'm not using an airbrush because this is actually, I find, more precise. That you carry on. I think, yeah, I think you'd be better off using it this way. And there's enough on the brush to carry on. You can still see a little bit of shine coming through. Thinners go a long way on a brush. So let's give that a few seconds to settle down. Finished with a flat brush for now, so I'll just get any excess off and we'll just leave that to the side. So what I'll do then, I'll get the streaking grime and a palette, and I'll use an old synthetic brush. I'll take a couple of drops, transfer it in to the well, and we're just going to make basically a panel line wash. So put the streaking grime to one side, bring back the thinner, and we'll add a few drops in there. And we'll do a little test on the helmet just to make sure it's running nicely. Looks okay there. I'll just clean off that brush and I'll leave it to the side. So I'm going to be using quite a thin brush for this. It's got a point on it. And we'll leave the palette to one side and we'll start work on the helmet. So I'll make a start. We'll just go around the helmet, just picking out all the lines. And just leave the product run and it'll fill all the lines out for you. Don't worry about making too much of a mess because you'll be able to remove the excess later on when it dries a little bit with the thinners. I think we've got everything. Covered there. The lenses are going to be dark. Let's do that line across the top of the helmet there again. There we go. Right, so we'll just leave that to one side. So pick out that bit there. That's good. And I'll make a start on the main body. I'm just going to carry on going round. This is quite therapeutic actually. You can just switch off and just pick out everything. Okay, so I've finished with the streak and grime wash now, and we'll leave that dry for I don't know, about 10 minutes or so, and then we'll start removing the grime using the odourless thinners again. So once we're ready, I tend to use a small brush that gives me a bit more control to remove the grime, because ideally you want to get rid of everything apart from what's in the recesses, so you can go across the top of the rim, the helmet there, and remove that. We'll look around and see other spots. Let's clean it up, so I'll go away from where the recess is, up towards the edge, just staying away from that, all the shadow areas. It doesn't have to be perfect because we are gonna weather it to death in a minute. Just get a decent base to start from. Again, you don't want too much on your brush because it'll just run in to the grime and disperse it all. See on the shin there we've got quite a bit to remove, so I'll just run up, try not to get any bristles into the groove of the shin. That's removed it quite easily. Same on this side. A bit on that pad. I'm not going to remove anywhere the cloth material is underneath. There's no point doing that because we'll be painting over it in a bit. So just carry on going round till you're happy, and then we'll come back for the next stage. So that's all the excess streak and grime removed. So what I'm going to do now is give it a coat of matte varnish just to seal it before we move on to the next stage. Okay, so before we seal it, I forgot about doing the rest of the colours on the markings. So for the blue, it's Vallejo's, I'll put that to one side now, pastel blue with a little bit of off-white in it. The red is just flat red, and the pouch on his thigh there is black leather by scale 75. The white stripe was using the off-white again, and put a black stripe around the white. The weapon, I actually dug out some Black Templar. haven't really tried it yet, but I thought we'd try the weapons out with that. It's given a nice colour to it actually. I'm quite surprised. I did the grenade the same as well, and the cloth here and the neck is all German grey, and I added a little bit of white, well, off-white to the German grey to get the gloves done. So I think we're up to date there. Just give you a quick look at the helmet. So that's mostly German grey, you can see there, not black, and a little bit of red in the recess there. Just drop it in, add a little bit of flow improver, drop it in, and it just finds its way around. So we're up to date. Next up, I'm going to use scale 75's brown leather for the trousers. So I'll make a start on that, and there's nothing to see really. I'm just blocking in colours here. There's no great technique to it, and as long as you get a nice opaque coverage, we'll be fine. Remember, don't go on too thick. Thin your paints down. It's about 50% paint, 50% water, and probably 2 coats would do it. But we'll see what it's like after one. So we'll come back for the next stage. Okay, so that's the brown leather on, just 1 coat. It's a little bit patchy here and there, so I'll do a 2nd coat and we'll come back, but that's that's all the colours blocked in now. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to seal it with a matte varnish, and then we'll come back for the weathering. Alright, so we're going to start the weathering process now. So I'm going to give a quick coat of chipping fluid, and I'll apply that through the airbrush. So what you do with the chipping fluid is just add it to the areas of armour, and you get a nice even coverage. And again, build it up on a couple of layers, because you don't want to go on too thick to start with. Same with if you want a nice even base coat, you need to build it up. So I'll set that aside to dry, and then do the helmet while we're here. So while the chipping fluid is drying off, I'm preparing the grime. So we've got engine grime, streaking grime. This is a Panzer Grey one, and any black oil will do. Just using that because it's handy really. Those are the numbers that I'm using. So I'm going to mix it. I've got about 4 parts of engine grime, 2 parts streaking grime, and just a little blob of black into the airbrush, which I shall put in now, and then I'll put a couple of drops of thinner in there as well, just for good measure. So that's not even 1 part black. You don't really need them a lot. I was just going to use the engine grime, but it's not dark enough on its own for what I was after, the effect. So I thought we'd add a bit of the other colours in there too. Okay, so that's all mixed up and ready to go. Okay, I forgot to say the chipping fluid is water soluble. So if you're using an airbrush, you can just clean it out with water. But the stuff we're using now is enamel, so you need like thinners to go in it, like white spirit, or I like to use this odorless thinners. Really good stuff. And here we go. I've dropped the pressure down on my airbrush to just under 2 bar. I was going to test it there, and I want to just build it up slowly, as you can see there. Just a couple of passes till we get the right kind of colour going. Right, let me zoom in and we'll go for it. From the pictures that I've seen online, this kind of weathering is going on all over the suit. So I'm just going to do patches here and there. But I think if I keep the darker or more intense colour of this grime towards the top of the model, it should look pretty cool. So the top of the shoulder pads and across the chest is my main areas that I want to concentrate on. I can add bits here and there. So let's do a bit on the shin pads too, and round on the calves, just up towards the top again. And same again with enamels, you've got a pretty good working time on this, so we'll leave it dry off for a couple of seconds, well, a couple of minutes, to let it dry, soak in, and then we'll start removing it using thinners again. Okay, I think he's suitably grimy. Well, don't worry about it, because we're going to remove most of that. So I'll move on to the helmet now. You'll notice it's mostly in the nose area for this one, and we'll try and get it on the joins of the top of the helmet and around the side as well. Filthy. Love it. Okay, right, so we'll give that a couple of minutes to dry and we'll come back for the next stage. Right, the grime is dry, ready to start removing it. So what you need is some thinners, which is the odorless thinners again, and a few different size synthetic brushes. And it's just a case of maybe starting off with this rubbish one and getting some thinners on your brush, like a start on the helmet, I think, and start removing the grime. Okay, so we've got a larger area, going to go with a larger brush. I've still got quite a bit of product on this brush, so I'll get rid of that first. Checking on a paper towel is a good thing. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to take the strokes up the way. use a smaller brush for the belt, I think. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Sometimes good to clean off panels in total, you know, get rid of everything, keep it clean, and just keep others a bit streaky. I think I've done as much as I can with the big brush now. I'm going to have to swap down. And get more control with the smaller brush. I think this panel here should be quite good to show you the controlled streaking. Yeah, quite like that. I'm going to go silent for a bit. Zone out. Hopefully you can see that when you add more thinners or go over it with more thinners, the more grime you remove. It's totally a personal taste thing. Regular viewers to the channel will know I like a bit of grime, so I might go a bit over the top on this one and just leave loads on it. But we'll see. I like a bit of weathering. I just hope these Shoretroopers haven't got a station warrant officer like I had. If you don't know, I used to be in the Air Force, and in my youth, 22 years. And there was one station warrant officer is like a regimental sergeant major, and we had this one at St Morgan, and he could spot an airman from about a mile away if he had a day's growth on his chin, or his hair was on his collar. And he must have been able to smell it. I don't know. It must be in their training, old school training. That's what it is. I got picked up on a parade because my sideburns were at different levels. Who notices that amount of detail? Not me. So I'm waffling now. I'm doing a Gav. Hi Gav. For those of you who don't know, Gavin Booth is a stalwart of YouTube, multi-talented kit builder, painter. Check his channel out, Gavin Booth. I really must finish that Russian tank. I was part of a group build, and I lost my way a bit the last few weeks. Well, it's more than that really, but it got worse the last couple of weeks, but I think I'm back on track now. As life gets on top of you now and again. Okay, I think you get the idea of where I'm going with it. So I won't do much more on camera. I'll finish it off camera, and when it's dry you can have a look and see what you think. Right, it's been about 24 hours now since we did the weathering, and it's looking good. Just give it a quick spin round. Quite happy with that. So next up we're going to work on the weapon. If you remember, it was Games Workshop Black Templar. Wasn't entirely happy with it, so I've gone over it with a very thin coat of black. And now in my palette I've got a few graduated tones there. So we've got dark blue grey. That's which one was that now? It was medium sea grey, 50-50 with a dark blue grey. Medium sea grey on its own, and medium sea grey with a bit of off-white in it. And you don't need that many, but we'll see how it goes. So I'm going to be highlighting from, let's get in the middle of the screen here, from the bottom to the top. So the highlights are going to be up towards the dangerous end of the weapon. So I'm going to be starting with the dark blue grey. Okay, here we go. Right, so this paint is a little bit more than 50-50 paint and water. And you'll see grooves all around the weapon, so I'm starting from about 3/4 of the way down. And just stroke up towards the top part. Probably won't see the first tone
probably become more apparent with the 50/50 blue-grey and sea grey. Keep things more interesting for you, I'm just going to do this handguard part. Speed things up a bit. So now I've gone to the 50/50 mix now. I'll go from about halfway up. Hopefully you can see that now. Can't really tell with this camera because the lights are so bright. I think you can. Let's come around this side. You'll know yourself looking at it whether you need a second pass just to lift the colour up a bit. Okay, so I think you can see that. I'll go for the next colour now, which is the sea grey on its own. Forgot to say, all these paints are about the same consistency as well. So, about a quarter of the way down now. Head up the way. And go for the lightest tone now, which is the sea grey with a little bit of white in it. And we'll go over the top and just start a little bit higher up. If anything, this is slightly more dilute because of the white. I don't want it to be too stark a change, if you know what I mean. Okay, I'm starting to get a nice highlight there. I think if I go back to the dark blue-grey, I'm going to start from the very bottom So with a, you'll have a rough idea if that's where the light is. Everything up the top is going to be lighter than further down, so you're going to have a striking highlight across the top of the magazine part there, and this bit will be more in shadow. The butt, I think, is, I'm just going to edge highlight down this side of it here. I'm not really going to touch this part down here, maybe a highlight here. But I'm going to carry on anyway, and I'll show you what it's like when we're done. Okay, so I'm coming to the final stages now of this weapon. I've put a little bit more off-white into the grey, just for the end highlights now. So it's basically just going to be a dot. So I'll find the magic angle where I've been highlighting, which is about there, I reckon. So you can see all the brightest highlights are at the top of each section. So that's where I'm going to be putting a little dot. So if I can explain that this stripy bit, or hoopy bit, that's a stripe, isn't it? Hoopy bit of the weapon there, I'm going to explain that as I do the brim of the helmet. So that'll become quite apparent in just a few seconds. So this is the absolute highlight now. And I'm not going to go all the way down the weapon. I'm just going to pick about as far as there, because everything else is going to be in shadow under there. So if you can see, just those little dots bring the highlights out a little bit more. So I've done the same on the grenade there. You can see the magic angle where it goes darker around the back, more bright around the front, and they're just going to add that little dot. And that's that done. So with the helmet, let me just pause it a minute. So as I alluded to earlier, I'm going to do that black trim on the helmet. So I want the highlight, just looking at it now, I think it's going to be there, but nah, I'm going to do it slightly different. I'm going to have the highlight slightly above that eye there, so it's in that line there. So I'm going to get the dark blue-grey to start with, and I'm going to thin it down a little bit more than we did for the weapon, just because we'll have a bit more control on it. So I'm going to start with the blue-grey from about there, pull it into the highlight area. If it's too stark a change from the black to the blue-grey, thin it down a bit more, or feather it if you can. I'll go into the 50-50 mix now. And you probably know the drill. I'll start closer in to the highlight area. Sorry if it's upside down, but it's easier for me to do. I think you get the idea. So, sea grey. So you can see the highlight building above the eye now. Apart from the glare on the top of it from the lights. If I tilt it like that, I think you can just about see that it's dark around here, almost black. And then over the eye then it gets lighter. So I'm going in with a sea grey on its own now, and it's the second pass on this one now. Just going to build that highlight there. And then quick human hairdryer. And this is the medium sea grey and the white. Now, I'm going to put a little dot to start with. Don't know if you can see that actually. So there's a little dot. There. And I'll glaze either side of that towards the dot. That's a bit too much. Okay, I think you can see it there, can't you? So we've got the highlight over the right eye. So I'm thinking, the light's going to be coming, obviously, because his head is angled, it's going to hit him right above the right eye anyway. So I'm just going to drop a little white dot now in the centre of that highlight. That'll do nicely. So I'm going with a black glaze now to sort out the right hand side of the helmet, because I think it's a little too light for my liking. So that's a bit better. Okay, right, I'm going to leave it there. Can drop a few highlights in the middle of the face mask as well, but for the greys, I think we're done there. I'm going to put highlights under the neck as well, but there's nothing new to show you there. It'll be the same techniques. So the next thing I'll do is the leather pouch here. So on my palette I've got scale 75's black leather. I've got brown leather there from the same set if I need it, and red leather. I'll just show you. Red leather, lovely colour. And this one up the top here is sandalwood. So I'm going for a totally weird kind of leather colour, a little bit of white if I need it. Weird leather because the trousers are brown, and I use brown leather for that because I like the colour. I might avoid using brown leather in the pouch part, so we're going to start highlighting this up. No, we're going to tell a line. We're going to put a black line into the recesses, and then we're going to start painting the rest of it. So I've put a black, steady the camera, put a black line in the grooves, so the recesses, just to get a nice bit of contrast going. I'm going to reapply the black leather. I keep gushing about this wooden leather set from scale 75, but there's some beautiful colours in there. If you can afford to shell out on it, I'd highly recommend it. I've done the straps the same colour. I'm just going to put another coat on the straps. So the plan is, again, the highlighting and the light is towards the top. So all this will be in shadow down here and highlights up the top. So we'll come in with the red leather up the top. I'm not sure whether these bits here, the little flaps on top, I don't know if they're metallic or not, I'm not sure. So I've got red leather with a bit of sandalwood in it. I'll leave that one alone. And number 1, 2 and 3 we'll give a highlight to right on the top. So add a little bit more sandalwood to the red leather. So we've got like a pinkish tone now. That's going to be a highlight. Just on the edges. I've got sandalwood on its own now. I might add some bone in at some point to give a better highlight colour. As soon as it's got a bit of yellow in it, because the black leather is more or less a desaturated purple. So I'm just doing the little flaps that are on the front of the pouch. And we'll put a highlight up the top there. And we'll go along the side. And the nearest colour I could find on my rack to the left, without stretching out to get the bone, I've gone for dark sand, which is basically a yellow. I've added a little bit of white to it, and it's pretty thin. And I'm just going to do a edge highlight on the top of each. Top of each bit. Just to give it a bit of contrast. And I think we'll go back to the red leather with a little bit of that sand in it, and we'll just put some scratches on the bottom part here. Just get a bit of texture going. got some dark sea blue on the side of my palette there, and I just added that to the black leather, made a glaze. Just putting that down the bottom, I thought, what the hell, just to get it nice and dark towards the bottom. And just play about with this until you're happy. I'm going to do another highlight now up the top. Hopefully I'm not in the way. Don't want to spend too much time on it because I don't want this to distract from the armour and a weapon. But as long as we've got a bit of contrast there, I'm happy. I think I'll leave it there. I really need to do a little bit of research to see what these little flap things on the front are like on the internet. Right, I'll leave that there. I'm going to do the same kind of thing for the belt, so I'll be highlighting the top part and then scratches and texture down towards the bottom part of it. And the straps around the back as well I'll be doing, but when I've finished all the scratches and that, I'll probably use that bluey purpley glaze which I've got now. I'll throw it up the top to start with, so I think that bit will be in shadow, and you got a bit of light towards the bottom here, so let's get a bit of red leather in there. Again, you don't want to spend too much time on this. And the odd scratch. That'll do. Okay, so onto the trousers. We've got scale 75 brown leather already on there, and I'm going to apply some Vallejo Armour Brown just into the recesses, creases, and it's quite thin. And we'll be building up some highlights in a minute. Okay, so I've got a 50-50 mix of brown leather and orange leather. Let's put that there to get the excess off my brush. I'm going to start doing some highlights now. And I'm pulling the pigment towards the edge of the creases. So you see I'm pulling it down the way, and it may take a couple of coats. Again, this is thin paint, so it's a little bit more than 50-50 paint and water. So I'll leave that dry and I'll do the other side. So that's 2 layers I've done now, and I'm moving up to another stage. So I've added in more orange leather to the brown leather, and again I'm just applying it to the highlight areas, and I want to try and keep the mid of the thigh more highlighted than around this side, so I'm just going to concentrate around these parts here. I'll do a little bit on the top of that. I'm not going to go the full length of the crease because it'll start to go into shadow on the inside of his thigh. So I'll leave that there. On his posterior, with the first coat of the brown leather and orange, I started about 3/4 of the way down, and then the second pass I started further up. You'd be familiar with that technique now if you've seen a few of my videos. So I'm going to start even higher up with this lighter colour, and I'm going to put it on a little bit thicker than normal and feather it off the edges just with water. I'll get some more on my brush and carry on then. So I'm bringing it down to the crease, or the edge of the crease, just along the edge of it. I'm not going to highlight between the thighs there because obviously it's going to be in shadow. Carry on picking out the creases. You can see what I'm doing is, if say that's the crease there, I'm pulling the highlight towards the edge of that crease. I hope you're getting that, because that's where the beauty of this highlighting technique comes in. It's only a subtle pull of the pigment. Makes blending a bit easier. Okay, we'll pause there. So what I've got now is just pure orange leather, and again it's thinned down, and I'm just stippling just little dots just to build up some texture in the highlighted areas. So it's along these creases and just away from the crease. Just little random dots. You put little scratches here and there as well. Again, very thin. And with these you can build up a nice little highlight. Just put a few scratches in. Just make sure you use the absolute tip of the brush. And we'll go for, I've got a little white on my palette, so I'll add that to the orange brown mix. and this is just full scratches. So I'll just make sure I'm just using the tip. I think we're nearly there. Okay. He's used exactly the same colours on the boots. As I don't see much point showing you that. I'll just extend the video even longer. So I'll do the shoes. I may put a darker brown in the grooves or the recesses, but no, I'm going to use exactly the same colours. Okay, just to finish off, I've got a couple of pigments. I've got Desert Dust by Vallejo, and this one is a sand yellow. I think it was Humbrel or something like that, a little weathering set that they had for tanks and that. So I like some of the colours, so I just grabbed it. So what I'm going to do, I'm probably going to mix in my little pigment box. That's the base I've done, by the way. I'll talk about that in a minute. So that's the Desert Dust and that's the sand, so I might mix them together and see what we get. And I'm just going to be applying this to the boots, just to get a little bit of dust on there. So as it applied, so I'll start removing. There's no point putting it on the armour because it'll just be the same colour really. So I think I've got a bit too much on there, so I'll get a bit of starting to come. Get a bit thinner on it to remove it. Try a brush. And just apply that to the base then. The base, I did a step-by-step on Instagram, but basically it's 2 layers of cork. This was acrylic medium with sand in it, and across a crackle paint, and I just used some deserty colours to paint it up. The clumps of grass here, I've put a little bit of sand pigment in them as well, just to try and blend them in a wee bit. And this was a plant that I found on eBay. I used quite a few of them for the Scarif board, which will be coming up in another video, I think. But there's plenty of how-tos on my Instagram page if you wanted to go over to there. But it's a slightly different colour scheme than on there. But no, I thought it would fit quite well. So I'm just going to get a bit of thinners on these boots to remove a little bit of the pigment. I'll glue them to the base, and then we'll take some nice pics and we'll do a wrap up. Here he is on his base, looking pretty good, I reckon. It turned out better than I thought. Really enjoyable little project. I really like this scale as well. So I'm going to be doing some more. I've done a Stormtrooper and a TIE Fighter pilot so far. I'm thinking about doing a longer base, a longer display base, so keep an eye out for that. I'll do a reveal of that when I've finished. But that's it, yeah. Hope you liked it, hope you got something out of it. It's a really enjoyable weathering process for this guy, so give it a go if you haven't tried it before. Really easy. If you get stuck, give us a shout. But that's it for me for now. We'll see you in the next episode then. All right, cheers.